now we are not gonna let this die until probably the second before Apple announces it, I guess, but 120 hertz hope has been restored in the community. Can I just say thank you to all the leakers who have come forward and talked about all of the instances in which it is possible, whether it's John Prosser, Everything Apple Pro, Max Weinbach, all of you restoring faith in humanity, which means you better be right, because if this ends up being wrong, man, that was a whole lot of false hope for nothing. So let's hope they're all right. However, I hope people understand that these types of leaks are not confirmation of necessarily anything, because in the Apple leak community right now, it's kind of a whirlwind, and there's definitely some fake stuff floating around that's getting mixed in with what is potentially real, and if you hate speculation, you're gonna hate today's video, because that's a lot of what it is. But without further ado, let's talk about the potential of 120 hertz again, making it to the iPhone 12 Pro. From the get-go, let me just explain something really quick, guys. I want this to be real. I really, really do. Again, 120 hertz is literally all I wanted on the next generation iPhone. If all they did this year was take the 11 Pro Max, add 120 hertz, and that's it, I would have bought it. I would have paid $1,500 for that phone, because it's a feature I really, really appreciate on other phones, and having that on iOS would just, it would be oh so smooth. But the reason I have a hard time believing a lot of these leaks, guys, is not because I hate these people. It's not that I'm rooting for everyone to be wrong. It's not that I'm a killjoy. It's not that I necessarily want everybody to be disappointed. It's simply because I've been you. Okay? I've been all of you many times, reading the reports and getting excited and thinking, oh, hey, this is happening. There's actual proof of it now. This is for sure. This is actually going to happen. And then it doesn't. It's happened to me year after year after year. And it's very easy to forget because we haven't always kept a very good track record of what leaks we thought were for sure happening and what leaks actually ended up being real. In fact, a lot of the time, Apple is still able to consistently surprise us despite how many leaks come out. And we oftentimes get things wrong. It's just a fact. Even when things look incredibly real. In fact, to be honest, in prior years, I've seen more realistic leaks than these that also ended up not being real. So whether or not they're prototypes that just didn't make the market or fake made up clones that people wanted for clicks, I don't know, but let's talk about what we know so far, okay? So a lot of this stuff is coming from John Prosser, who has gotten a lot of dates right in the past, and definitely has inside sources that are letting him know about Apple hardware launches. We know that, we've seen that, it's been proven. And he showcased these screenshots as well as a working video of the iPhone 12 in his latest Front Page Tech episode. And I hate to bring this up because I'm gonna feel like a killjoy talking about it, but guys, these types of just software settings and menus and toggles within a phone, it's really not hard to make those happen. Pretty much anyone who knows how to use Xcode, and probably in the Apple community because they're following leaks and that kind of thing, you can make those things with an app. Again, I'm not 100% saying this is totally fake. It totally could be real. I'm not denying that. I'm simply stating that it's not a confirmation because as leakers get more and more popular, they are sent more and more fake leaks. I'm not trying to make the argument that John, Everything Apple Pro, or Max, any of these guys are intentionally faking stuff. That's really not the point I'm trying to make here. I'm not trying to cause drama. I'm simply stating that I've seen people in my own Discord come up with iOS settings in toggles and menus that say certain things that you can load onto an iPhone just by making your own developer app. It's been done, okay? Just because screenshots say a certain thing or the phone is behaving a certain way in a really dark room, it's not confirmation of anything. It could be faked. It also doesn't help that we're not seeing the bottom of this phone screen. They didn't do this in today's video, but if I were trying to fake leaks, I could totally do it. You could very simply, in this type of filming environment, design an app that works in any orientation, flip your iPhone upside down, and start using it and add just a smaller notch at the top of the screen. And because it's in a completely black room or it's in a protective case, people wouldn't really be able to disprove it, okay? It's totally possible. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to disprove this exact leak. I'm just saying if you see more of these in the future, keep in mind, it is totally fakeable. Oh no, now I'm probably giving guys ideas. What I'm saying is we don't know. And when it comes to the exact screenshots that I'm seeing other people post around, it sounds like while all of these PVT photos are going around, some of them definitely look more real than others. Looking at overlay shots and what people have compared to me of how close the notch and the ears of the display are to what we already have with the 11 Pro Max, it does seem very, very easy to fake. Again, not saying 100% it is, just saying it's possible. And because we've gotten so many things wrong over the past few years and Apple is still able to surprise us, we should all remain a little bit skeptical, and that's healthy. If I end up being wrong and these are totally real, that would be wonderful. Again, I'm rooting for that, but just saying don't 100% believe everything you see. I want to remind everyone of those iOS 14 screenshots that so many people were throwing around the internet saying this is confirmed, the wallpaper changes, the wallpaper settings and dynamic stuff. This is totally happening with iOS 14. It looks completely legit. It didn't happen. Now that doesn't mean it was fake. It could have been a prototype or some kind of early beta test of iOS 14 that Apple decided not to finalize, but that could also be the situation here because again, PVT units are not full-scale mass production units, and John Prosser himself admitted that not even all the PVT units have a 120 Hz display, which is why on these screenshots themselves there's a lot of text referring to make sure your device supports 120 Hz because not every prototype has it. So if we're this late in the year and we can't even say it's necessarily standard in the prototyping phase, in my opinion, it's kind of a bit of a stretch to assume that because the prototypes don't have every feature that it's possible that the mass production model could all have that by default. Ross Young and Rene Ritchie talked about how with these displays, which are not LTPO, which means that they can't dynamically change refresh rate as well as other devices can, like the Galaxy Note 20 or the iPad Pro, which I think a lot of people are getting confused about because the iPad Pro does not have an LTPO display, but important difference here. The iPad Pro is an LCD screen, and LCDs are not the same as OLED panels like we have on our iPhones. Okay, look, ProMotion on the iPad is not just 120 Hz. ProMotion means the iPad can lower the refresh rate all the way down to 24 Hz, it can be 48 Hz, it can be 60, it can be 120 dependent on what you're doing. With OLED, however, you can't exactly do that same thing. You can't dynamically change all the way down to 24 and scale all the way up to 120. With an OLED display, pretty much the only thing you can do dynamically is maybe switch between 60 and 120. 60 Hz, of course, is what we already have on our iPhones today, which means that turning on 120 Hz on these iPhones is almost 100% certain going to be impacting the battery life. Now, could Apple let this be an option in settings and let some people kill their battery if they want to, or just leave 60 Hz on and have comparable battery life to what we currently have? Maybe. You know, the batteries are smaller this year, so that already puts it in kind of a complicated situation. Maybe you'll be able to turn on 120 Hz in settings, which personally, I'd be fine with that because I think the battery life on my 11 Pro Max is great anyway. I sit at a desk, I have a wireless charger, okay, so I can let it stay at 120 Hz, but does it sound like something Apple would do? Is Apple the kind of company that would make a flagship type feature that has to be activated via settings? Or is Apple the type of company to say, well, we tried to do 120 Hz this year, but the color accuracy doesn't look right, the colors don't stay consistent when we switch to 120 Hz, it hurts the battery. So instead, we're going to delay that feature for next year so that we have something big to introduce on the 12S or the 13, and we can do it right because we'll have LTPO panels by then. To me, I hate to be pessimistic, but I mean, just look at these leaks telling us that the notch is going to be the exact same size as the notch we've had since 2017. Do you think Apple's the kind of company that's like, we don't need to change the notch for 3 years, but this year we're getting half the prototypes with 120 Hz, half of them without, so let's just bring 120 Hz to all mass production as an option in settings? I don't know. To me, it seems like it's reaching. Again, really hope I'm wrong. It would be awesome if we could get 120 Hz this year. It just really doesn't feel like, with this many red flags, in my opinion, and this many we're not sure, but we're kind of sure reports like, well, it could happen, but it might not happen, but it could, but it might. Anytime we see things on the fence like that in prior years, whether it's bilateral wireless charging, or the notch might be shrinking this year, or Touch ID, or Apple Pencil support. We've seen leaks like that countless times, and they end up not being true. So I am still skeptical. I have no doubt that internally, Apple has iPhones running at 120 Hz for the prototyping phase to see how it's behaving, to see if they can make it work. But from what we're hearing, it does definitely sound like they're on the fence about it. And this late in the game, I don't really see it making to the mainstream. And by the way, all these leaks and reports are talking about the 6.7-inch 12 Pro Max. So if it's possible that, sure, it runs great on the 12 12 Pro Max, but it doesn't run great on the 12 Pro. Is Apple the type of company that would make exclusive features just for the Max Pro and not the little Pro? Doesn't seem like it in prior years. It seems like they want both those Pro models to be equivalent when it comes to displays and biometrics and storage options and processor speeds. All those things, they like those phones to be the same. So I could totally see Apple just saying, well, 12 Pro Max can do it, but the 12 Pro can't, and we don't want it to have that advantage, so we're just gonna leave it at 60 hertz on both. I get that's not what you want. You don't want to hear that, but it's possible. You have to admit, Apple is the type of company to be shipping 60 hertz displays on $1,000 phones in 2020. That's something they would do. So I hope I didn't tick everyone off. That really wasn't my purpose in today's video. It's simply to remind everyone to have a healthy bit of skepticism. But of course, yes, fingers crossed, it would be awesome if these ended up being real and we could actually get 120 hertz on this year's iPhone, because that would really help it catch up with everything else on the market that's already there. Please, Apple, don't be behind on this for another year. But what do you guys think? Am I being too crazy? Too pessimistic? Well, it's just because I've seen leakers get so much wrong in prior years. So hopefully you guys understand. This is your Apple Ship here. I'll see you in the next one.